Am I the a-hole for locking up my romance novels so my husband can't throw them away? I love romance. To be clear, I don't enjoy self-inserts or wish fulfillment romance where I'm the target. I love reading about two individuals falling in love and the idea of eternal love. I read a lot of romance books. I also enjoy josei manga, webtoons, comics, and short stories. My husband recently started having an issue with my romance items. He says they are in the way. I keep my books on one bookshelf. I have my own iPad, though I prefer physical books. I have my own library card and account. I do my half of the chores, pay my half of the bills, and do my part around the house. The romance books are not affecting his life in any way. But he hates them. He made a comment about throwing them out and having a fresh start. So, I bought a small cabinet/dresser with a lock on it from Amazon and locked up all of my novels. My husband tried opening the door of one and found out it was locked. Now he is upset and guilt-tripping me, saying that I don't trust him and that I care more about my romance novels than him. Am I the a-hole for starting my wedding on time? My parents are late for everything. They were late for everything while I grew up and they refuse to care about being late. They do not care how disrespectful it is to everyone else. My older siblings have adjusted to this by planning all kinds of slack into their schedules. Our parents showed up late to both of their weddings, but that had been accounted for so they were able to participate in the weddings as planned. The same goes for family get-togethers that are hosted by anyone other than my parents. My siblings plan for them to be late. I went the other way. When my parents were late for my high school graduation, I told them that I would never wait for them for any event that I had power over. And I have held to that. When my wife and I hosted our first Thanksgiving after we bought our home, we started eating on time. My parents showed up late after visiting with other family and were surprised to see us all laying around in tryptophan comas. My wife and I got married last weekend and the ceremony went perfectly. Other than my mother not being involved in the candle lighting. My older sister was my backup. My parents showed up 3/4 of the way through the ceremony and ended up sitting at the back of the church. They kept everything in during the receiving line and the formals. But they let me have it afterwards and before the reception. They were very disappointed that they did not get to participate in the ceremony and that they missed so much of it. I was ready for this. I had one of my friends waiting and he took their pictures when they were entering the church and sitting down at the back. He sent me the pictures as a text and as email. I asked my parents to show me their invitations. They did not have it with them, so I pulled out the one I had ready for this. I showed them the time on the invitation. I asked them what time they showed up. They said that they were only 5 minutes late and that I was an asshole for not waiting. I pulled up my text messages and my email. Both provided a timestamp of when they showed up 35 minutes late. They said that if I knew they were going to be late that I should have planned for it like my siblings. I told them that I had not put up with their bullshit since I graduated from high school and why they thought I would start now almost 15 years later. I told them that my siblings could coddle them all they wanted, but to enjoy their time with me they had better learn to be punctual. They said I was disrespectful and if I did not like their behavior that was entirely my problem. I agreed and said I would be handling all my time with them the exact same way. Am I the a-hole for not reimbursing my friend for an ingredient I used for dinner? So the gist of things is that I, am 28, have a friend, F32, who I meet up with around once a week for dinner. This will usually be at my home, since she doesn't have much space at hers, and because I will be the one cooking. I love cooking, have been doing it since I was 6, and I'll usually prepare us dinner with a mix of pantry staples and a few things I'll add into my weekly grocery shop. It's a nice little break in the week, and we both really enjoy it. The issue arose when my friend contacted me and told me they would have other friends visiting from abroad on the day we were set to have dinner. She wanted to hang out with them, but also wanted to make our dinner. I suggested if they were open to the idea, they could come with her and I would cook for all 4 of us. She spoke to them, and they agreed. On the day of, I asked my friend if they had any requests. She asked for a local dish that comes with a steak topping, baked Japanese curry rice with steak if anyone is curious, and I said that would be fine. I would get the cheese if the 3 of them could get the steak they wanted for themselves. I myself am vegetarian, but I don't mind cooking meat for guests. She agrees. I also give her some suggestions for what she can ask for in Japanese to get a good, mid-priced cut of steak. When they arrive, I'm already doing my prep. My friend hands me the steak, and I notice it's a very high-quality one, practically coated in marbling. I mention how surprised I am, and she laughs it off saying that the assistant she spoke to recommended it as a very good cut. I carry on cooking. We end up having a great dinner. Everyone was very complimentary about the food and I opened some wine I'd bought for the dinner too. We ended up chatting until quite late before everyone left. Things got a little awkward after they left. I received a text from my friends saying they'd all enjoyed the dinner, and asking me to transfer her around $9,500, $64, for the steaks. I refused, pointing out that I hadn't eaten any, and that I'd paid for everything else. She then said that I should have told her I wouldn't be willing to include the steaks in the dinner and prepared something else, and she wouldn't have bought them as her finances were tight at the moment. To me, this doesn't really hold water. Firstly because she's aware I'm a vegetarian and wouldn't include steaks unless asked, but more so because she specifically bought a more expensive cut of steak than my recommendation, which feels very presumptive if she truly believed I was paying for it. Am I the a-hole for refusing to yield a seat when a family said they were saving it for their son in the bathroom? I was flying with my mom for the holidays when we got to our gate. The gate was fairly crowded with only 2 available seats. We sit down and then this woman speaks up from next to us saying she was saving that seat for her son who was in the bathroom. I did not know this when I sat down. I decide to not give up the seat saying that seats are for everyone and you can't really save them when the airport is as crowded as this. Am I the a-hole here and it is okay for people to save seats at crowded airports? Everyone in this situation was an adult. The son of the mother was an adult who looked to be in their 20s and not a kid. When I sat down I did not know anyone else was sitting there. Am I the a-hole for accepting my daughter's request for me to walk her down the aisle and fill in for a mother/daughter dance at her wedding when my husband has been her stepdad since she was 10? I lost my first husband when our children Kala, 24F, and Hawthorne, 26 meters, were 6 and 8 years old. I remarried 4 years later. I met my husband a year after losing my late husband. We were friends for several months, dated some, stronger feelings developed and I introduced him to the kids to see how they would get along. We halted for a year while my kids and I did some therapy because their reaction to my husband was strongly negative, because they didn't want to replace their dad. But once therapy was ongoing they were doing better. From there things moved faster but the kids were on board for things to move on. They were clear, however, that my husband was not going to be filling the role of a dad in their lives. My husband said he was fine with it as long as he was respected and they could work toward being caring family. Kala and I were always close but she was a real daddy's girl. Losing her dad was extremely tough for her. She did form a nice relationship with my husband but it comes nowhere close to the bond she had with her dad. From the age of 12 she and I became much closer. I think my parenting style as well as my willingness to talk about her dad even after I remarried made me someone she felt she could be open with. She was 15 when she told me if she ever got married she would want me to walk her down the aisle and for us to do a mother/daughter dance instead of a father/daughter one. I told her we could dance to the song her dad used to sing to her. She said she loved the idea. Even though she seemed to mean it, I always assumed things would change when she got older. I figured she would choose to walk alone, with her brother as a representation of her dad and their close relationship as well as for the societal expectation for a man to do it, or with her husband. But when she got engaged 3 weeks ago she asked me right away. She brought up our past conversation and told me she wanted exactly that. I told her I would be honored. We cried tears of joy together. I told her that her dad would be so proud. My husband took the news in a way I did not expect. His first question was whether I suggested she ask us both to do it and I told him no. Then he asked if she ever considered asking him and I said I could not answer that for her. He asked me if I thought of him when I said yes. He asked whether I gave any thought to all he has done for Kala, for both kids, and the fact he's still not looked upon as a fatherly figure all these years later. I told him I did not think of him when asked because I was overjoyed. He told me I should have given him a lot more consideration and I should have tried to compromise with my daughter.